The world still remembers the twinkle in her eyes, that mischievous little girl who could twitch her nose and make magic happen. But behind the timeless smile of Erin Murphy, the child star who captured millions of hearts as Tabitha Stephens on Bewitched, there was a woman who quietly grew up in the harsh shadow of fame, aging in a world that refuses to let little girls grow old. When she posted a simple makeup-free selfie at 61 years old, fans were stunned. She looked radiant, real, and unapologetically herself. Yet that one photo reopened a conversation that Hollywood often avoids. What happens to the women who refuse to chase youth with a scalpel? And what does it really cost to age with grace in an industry built on illusion? For Erin Murphy, her life has always been a contradiction, the sweet innocence of a magical child on television, and the very human battle she faced once the cameras stopped rolling. As fans flooded her social media, many called her brave. Others speculated. But Erin's message was clear. This is 61, without a facelift, without any makeup. Those words weren't just a caption, they were a declaration, a statement of defiance in a culture that still measures worth by smooth skin and youthful faces. But what fans didn't see was the journey that led her there, a story of childhood stardom, identity lost and reclaimed, and the quiet courage it takes to live authentically when the world wants perfection. Erin's story began long before that viral selfie. She was just a baby when she first stepped in front of the camera, barely old enough to form words but already stealing hearts. Born in Encino, California in 1964, Erin was one of those rare children who didn't have to act to seem magical. She just was. Her parents, like many in Hollywood's orbit, saw her sparkle immediately. When she was only 2, Erin and her twin sister Diane were cast together as the adorable daughter of Samantha and Darren Stephens on Bewitched, one of television's most beloved shows of the 1960s. America instantly fell in love with little Tabitha, the wide-eyed girl who could twitch her nose and make toys float or her parents freeze in place. On screen, she was the personification of innocence. Off-screen, Erin was just a little girl surrounded by sets, lights and famous faces. But fame, especially for a child, comes with invisible costs. While millions watched her on television, Erin was growing up under relentless scrutiny, her childhood preserved on tape for eternity. When the show ended in 1972, Erin was only 8 years old. Most kids her age were learning multiplication tables and trading lunch snacks. Erin, meanwhile, was learning what it meant to be forgotten. Hollywood moved on, as it always does, and the little girl who had once symbolized magic found herself in a world that had no script for what came next. There was no manual for surviving child stardom, no blueprint for life after applause. What fans saw as adorable, Erin would later describe as both a blessing and a burden, because once you've been America's favorite child, the world struggles to let you grow up. As a teenager, Erin tried to blend into normal life. She attended school, joined the cheerleading team, and tried to carve out an identity that wasn't defined by reruns. But no matter how far she went, people still recognized that familiar smile. Some fans wanted autographs, others whispered, "Is that Tabitha?" It was as if she'd been frozen in time, a permanent reminder of a magic she could never fully escape. And while that nostalgia kept her name alive, it also kept her trapped. Like many former child stars, Erin's post-Hollywood years were filled with reinvention. She dabbled in modeling, television appearances, and even production work. But underneath her steady charm was a young woman navigating identity in an industry that glorifies youth but punishes aging. Every casting call, every red carpet appearance came with unspoken comparisons to her younger self, to her on-screen mother Elizabeth Montgomery, to the unrealistic beauty ideals that haunted so many women in Hollywood. And through it all, Erin smiled, but behind that smile there were scars, both literal and emotional. The little girl who once embodied perfection had collected real-life marks along the way. In her recent Instagram post, Erin revealed them all with raw honesty: a scar on her forehead from a dog-walking accident, another under her chin from childhood, and lines around her eyes that came, she said, from laughing more than crying. "I suppose it's a backhanded compliment," she wrote, addressing those who speculated she'd had plastic surgery, "that you think I look good for my age." Her words hit a nerve across social media. Some called her an inspiration, others a revelation. But the deeper truth was harder to digest. Even in 2025, women in Hollywood are still punished for aging naturally. Erin's selfie wasn't just a photo, it was a rebellion, a soft, smiling protest against decades of pressure to erase time. Fans of Bewitched still remember her as the little girl who could make magic happen with a twitch of her nose. But Erin's real magic wasn't in special effects, it was in her resilience. When the fame faded and the spotlight dimmed, she didn't crumble. She rebuilt her life outside of the industry, finding peace in family, advocacy, and authenticity. But every time she stepped into the public eye, the ghost of Tabitha followed, sometimes as nostalgia, sometimes as a shadow. The entertainment world can be cruel to those who outgrow its fantasies. Erin once admitted in an interview that she'd seen many child stars fall apart, trapped by addiction, isolation, or the weight of their own legend. But she made a choice. She wouldn't let Hollywood define her worth. She would age on her own terms, even if it meant facing criticism. And when trolls recently tried to tear her down, accusing her of having cosmetic work, Erin didn't retreat. She faced them head-on. "This is me," she wrote, at 61, with scars, with laugh lines, with stories. It was more than a clapback. It was a statement about self-acceptance that resonated far beyond celebrity culture. Her followers rallied around her, praising her courage. "Beautiful. Love your message," one fan wrote. "You look great for any age," another added. Even strangers were moved by her vulnerability. "Small, weak people rip others down to make themselves feel better," one commenter wrote. "You're amazing. Stay strong." But while the public applauded, Erin's post also exposed a darker truth, that even in the age of empowerment, the pressure to look perfect never truly fades. Every wrinkle becomes a talking point, every scar becomes speculation, and every woman who dares to age naturally becomes a headline. Erin's honesty forced fans to confront their own complicity in the obsession with youth. Behind the calm tone of her caption was a deeper message, one born from years of being watched, judged, and remembered for something she did as a child. "Before you sit down and write something negative about someone you've never met," she wrote, "why don't you think about something nice you can say, or don't say anything at all?" It was advice not just for critics, but for an entire culture that has forgotten how to show kindness. That viral selfie may have reignited her fame, but Erin Murphy never set out to trend. She wanted to remind people that beauty doesn't need editing, that happiness isn't filtered, that aging isn't a failure, it's a privilege. For a woman who grew up in the glimmering fantasy of television magic, the real miracle was learning to love herself without illusion. As the years pass, Bewitched remains one of television's most iconic shows, a relic of a simpler time. Fans still rewatch old episodes, seeing little Tabitha giggle and wave her arms in delight. But for Erin Murphy, those scenes are more than nostalgia. They're snapshots of innocence, frozen forever. And maybe that's why her recent photo struck such a chord. It showed that even the faces we once knew as flawless can bear the marks of a real lived life and still be beautiful. In the end, Erin's story isn't about a facelift. It's about facing life, unfiltered, unretouched, and unafraid. It's about choosing joy over judgment, authenticity over approval, and laughter over fear. She may no longer twitch her nose and make magic happen, but her message carries a different kind of power, one that reminds millions that self-love is the most transformative magic of all. Erin Murphy didn't just grow up on television, she grew beyond it. And in doing so, she became something even rarer than a child star who survived. She became a woman who thrived. They once called her America's Little Witch, but today, her magic is something far more human. It's courage, it's grace, it's the refusal to be anything other than real. What part of Erin Murphy's journey surprised you the most? Her fame as a child, or her strength as an adult? And if you thought her story was inspiring, wait until you see what happened to another child star who faced Hollywood's darkest curse and lived to tell it.